Hello, my name is Dr. Adishino. Today I shall be talking to you guys about how I became a physician. The reason why I wanted to share this story with you guys is because I want to inspire another person who's interested in becoming a physician. Now, my decision to become a doctor started when I was younger. I was about 7 to 8 years old when I noticed the chickens that my father told me to be taking care of. They actually started to have problems seeing in the morning. And I said, wait a minute, why can't this chicken see? And I looked at the side of their eyeballs and I noticed they had like this huge mass. And I was a little bit worried. In fact, I was actually skeptical. So I said, well, I'm not going to let out those chickens, which I've been raising for a while, let them out in the public, and then they get hit by a car because they can't see from the other side of their eyeball, both the mother and the little chicks. So what I did is actually I took a little pin, took out some of this little abscess that's actually around their eyeball, and I was a little scared because after washing their eyes with water, the chickens actually stopped moving, and I thought I'd killed them. Like, what's my father going to say? But later on, eventually during the course of the day, the chickens actually got up and they started to move around, and I was very, very inspired because I said, for the first time in my life, I actually did a little mini invasive procedure on little chickens, saved their life from being hit by a car in the neighborhood, and this was in Nigeria. And that inspired me to say, wait a minute, if I can do that to chickens, imagine what I can do to human beings whose lives are even more valuable. And then as I started to grow up, I had an allergic reaction to dairy products, and what I noticed is that I couldn't process dairy, so I developed anaphylaxis to it. So that gave me more motivation. I said, wait a minute, I want to find the cure to my anaphylaxis. Why can't I eat milk products when my other siblings can? So that became my second motive. And eventually the third motive was when my grandmother developed Alzheimer's at the age of 92. And I couldn't understand why she lost her memory, what exactly was wrong with her. And I really felt that I couldn't help much, despite the fact I have no medical knowledge, and I was about probably 12 to 14 years old at that point in time. So all these three combinations together and my interest in science motivated me to start my path towards choosing medicine as a career. Now, I moved from Nigeria and came all the way to the United States and obviously looked for a better life and also to pursue my career path to becoming a doctor. So let me tell you what exactly happened. So I started in a smaller school. It's a private school called Bloomfield College. And when I actually started there, I was doing pretty well. I started my freshman year and I met my advisor. And when I walked into my advisor's office, I said, ma'am, I came from Nigeria and I want to be a doctor. And she laughed at me. She said, what do you mean you want to be a doctor? Do you know what it takes to be a doctor? Have you ever taken the MCAT? Do you know what the healthcare system in America is like? I said, ma'am, I have no idea, but all I know is I want to become a physician. She said, becoming a doctor is one of the most difficult things people ever do in this country. Plus, you don't even have a green card. I said, well, that's beside the point. I came here to this country because I wanted to become a doctor, and that's the reason why I'm here. She was really shocked. And just a side note, people are going to tell you no. A lot of people are going to turn you down. They're not going to believe in your dreams. And only you are the only person who has that dream in mind. No matter how far that dream looks ahead, you have to believe in yourself that you can do something. So that was my first obstacle, my pre-medical advisor, who's supposed to help me in the process of getting to medical school, but actually playing me down and actually discouraging me from the process. And here's even the funniest part of the story. She said, in the last 5 years, nobody has gone to medical school in this college. Well, that's one bit of information. I said, well, I guess it's going to be my turn to change the course of time if in the last 5 years nobody has gone to medicine. So here I am. So I told her, well, here's what I'm going to do. Why don't you tell me the courses I need to take? I don't care about the MCAT right now. I don't care about the healthcare system at this point. I'm a freshman in college. Tell me the first step that I need to do so I can prepare myself for this career path. So she said, well, you already missed the first semester of college in terms of not taking chemistry, which means you're going to have to wait for another whole year before you start chemistry 1. I said, ma'am, listen, give me a chance. I want to start chemistry 2. And if I even get a C, pull me out of the course. She said, absolutely no. I'm like, I got a 3.5 GPA last semester. She said, well, that doesn't mean anything. You took math, English, and biology. I'm not impressed. That was my second obstacle. So I said, well, I don't want to spend 5 years in college. I want to spend 4 years in college and graduate on time so I can get to medical school. So I started taking all the classes. And at the end of the semester, I got a 3.9 GPA. So I went back to my advisor's office and said, listen, look at my GPA. I've taken anatomy and physiology. I've taken calculus 1 at that point in time. And she said, oh, well, I'm impressed. Maybe I should have allowed you to take that chemistry course. But guess what? You're going to start with chemistry 1 now. I said, okay. But guess what? I'm going to be changing the rules from now on. I'm going to take charge of my life. I'm going to start to make my own schedule. So I went into my brochure in college, went through all the courses I need to take to graduate, and I actually went through everything, highlighted it, and mapped it out, and I was able to figure it out to graduate in 4 years. And by the time I got to my 3rd year in college, my advisor said, you know, you should think about becoming a double major. I said, really? Well, as long as I graduate in 4 years, I don't mind. So I was able to do biochemistry and general biology combined together. Again, so the courses overlapped, and keep moving on. So most students often take the MCAT in their 3rd year of college, which was my anticipation. But I remember my advisor telling me how difficult this exam is. It's one of the hardest exams you're going to take. It's a standardized exam. It's a screening test to get people into medicine. And if you don't do well, you can get into medical school. I said, well, we'll see. But she told me something. She said, you got to work on your English. Okay, the verbal passages in the MCAT are very difficult, and you have to read fast, answer them in a very efficient manner, and move on. And she told me to start reading Time magazine. I tried. I think I picked up 1 or 2 of the Time magazine. They were too boring for me. I was more interested in science. Mistake number 1. Okay, so I'm from Nigeria where I speak English, but it's not the same level of English expected on the verbal exam. So I wasn't aware of that. So as I was chugging along, I got to my spring semester of 3rd year, and I had a huge load of courses to take. I was taking biochemistry 1, biochemistry 1 lab. I was taking organic chemistry 1 and organic chemistry 1 lab. I was taking physical chemistry 1 and physical chemistry 1 lab. I mean, it was probably one of the hardest times in college, and I was still working as a tutor and as a substitute teacher, and while still preparing for the MCAT. Very, very challenging semester I will never forget. So I didn't really focus much on the MCAT during that time, and I said during the summertime, I'm going to start preparing for the MCAT full-time, and I'm not going to work. So I spent from about April to end of August, mid-August, was my blocked out time to study for the MCAT full-time. And I did. So I called my friends. I said, we're going to go to the library, and we are going to read all day, and we are going to study. So I chose exam crackers to study for my board exam, which is the MCAT. And I remember when I was studying for my MCAT, we had gone to class, and they told us it's a review course. I didn't know what a review course is, and I think a lot of students probably don't even know what a review course is. So this summer classes that you take, the Kaplan, MCAT, Princeton review courses, what they mean by the word review means you read the material during the day, and in the evening when you actually come to class, they're just going to go over the highlights. So they expect you to read, and then when you come in, you just come with questions. They go very briefly within 45 minutes. So even if you don't understand the laws of motion, you better have read it, and when you come to class, they explain it to you in a little short detail. So my first week in class, I was very frustrated. I thought this was college courses. I thought I was going to come into the class, and somebody's going to actually read the material, go over it. And what I found out was within 45 minutes, they're going through the first chapter in Physics 101, and they're talking about, oh, we're going to do some review questions. And I said, wait a minute, you didn't explain everything I need to know from the beginning to the end. You just chose a few things. So that was mistake number 2. So after about 4 or 5 weeks into the course, I got really frustrated because I wasn't really prepared in the morning as much as I should. But obviously by the fourth or fifth or sixth week, I'm starting to catch up. So I tried to read a little bit more. But I started to notice a pattern. I was struggling in verbal. I mean, big time. I hated verbal. The passages were boring. I could not stand them, and I never could finish reading them. And I didn't know that was going to be a big detriment to me when I was studying for the course. So I was really focusing more on the physics, the chemistry, the biology, because I'm like, I can score pretty good on those. Maybe the English, not as much. So we started to go to the library every day. We'll go to the library, take our buses, and then we'll study from literally 8 o'clock to about 4 or 5 in the evening. So we'll kind of break it apart. By 5, we start an MCAT review course and with the exam crackers, and then we go home at 8 in the evening. And we kind of did that for like a good 6 to 8 weeks. So about halfway through, I started doing practice questions. And I took my first practice questions, and I remember scoring about a 4 on my verbal. Scored maybe like a 9 on biological science, about a 10 or so in the physical sciences, and I saw my deficiency. It was very obvious. You are doing poorly in verbal. And guess what I did? I ignored it. I said, I think I'm going to get better. Well, there was this book known as 1001 Passages of Verbal. I could not get through it. I didn't even finish it. And I just kept focusing on my biology and chemistry. And we kept taking more and more practice tests from the WMC website. And I noticed every time we do the verbal, number one, I can never finish the passages. I run out of time. And by the time I get to the 7th passage, the hour is done. I saw this. It was obvious. I still ignored it, despite all these alarming signs, because I was a naive pre-medical student who think I could beat the system. So by the final week of my exam date approaching, having nobody to give me any good advice, I took my verbal test again, and I noticed I was scoring consistently between a 2 and a 6. Well, I need at least a good 10 or 9 on the verbal, so that if I'm scoring a 10, 11, or 12 on my physical and biological sciences, I can score a good 29 or 30 on the exam. But I kept ignoring it. So, you know what I said to myself? I said, you know what? On the exam day, by the stroke of luck or magic, I'm going to score a 9 on the verbal. Well, clearly I wasn't doing well. And if I had to do it all over again, if I had somebody to give me words of advice, I would have listened to them, because I saw my weaknesses before taking the MCAT exam, and I was scoring actually between 21 and 27 roughly. I think that was my highest score at that point in time. And I said, well, I scored 27 once. Maybe that's what I'm going to get on the test. But my average was falling consistently between 22s and 24s, but I still went ahead and took the test. Now, let's take a minute. I'm going to give you good advice now. Don't do what I did. If you're not scoring the number you need to get to do well on the exam, when you take those standardized exams, they are very clear-cut and accurate and precise. It tests your level of knowledge compared to other people. And if you score in 19, 15, don't expect to go and take the test and score 30. It will never happen. You know the people that score 30 on the exam? When they take their practice test, they're scoring 33s, 32s, 29s, which means when you actually take the exam itself, you're going to fall into the plus or minus 5 or 4 range, which means, let's say you're scoring 25 on your practice test, because of anxiety and some other factors on the exam day, your scores actually probably might drop 1 or 2 points from what you're scoring on the practice test. That's why I tell students, practice, practice, practice. Now, if I had to do that all over again, what will I have done? I will have studied and did thousands of questions. I did not do enough questions, and I'm admitting, I'll let you know right now, mistake number 4. Okay? So, don't do that. The more questions you do, the more you can see different ways they actually test you on the real exam. That's how it works, guys. And if you're struggling on verbal, now let me tell you what happens to immigrants when they read verbal passages. So immigrants whose language is not primarily English, when they read a verbal passages, what you actually do, at least what I do, for example, is I'll read a passage and translate it into my native language and then put it back into English. And there's about all this moment of translation, transcription in my brain to actually process the English that I'm reading on the paper into my native tongue and then back into English. That is called a waste of time. Because clearly what happens when you do that is you've got 5 minutes to read a whole 600 words passage. And you have about another 5 minutes to read and answer all the questions. By the time you're translating, then if I don't understand what it's saying, I go back to the passage and read it again. Those are all time wasters on the exam. And the only way you can get better at this verbal is by reading and comprehending as fast as you can. And the only way you can do that is by doing it more, okay? You know, they said repetition is the mother of all learning, okay? It's the father of action and the architect of all accomplishment. That was by Zig Ziglar, which means the more you repeat something, the better you get at it. If you repeat it less, the less you get at it. And now, remember, don't ever ignore your weak portions on the exam. I see hundreds and hundreds and thousands of students every year. They clearly see their weaknesses and then they rush to take the test. That's what I did, and I'm going to tell you my actual score. The first time I took the MCAT, I got a 21. Wow. I was devastated. I said, oh my God, I can't get into medical school with this. I'm screwed, right? That's what everybody says. I said, well, I guess my advisor's discouragement speech that I got in my freshman year is finally going to come to pass. So I was really sad. I said, well, I want to become a doctor. I want to get to medical school. So what am I going to do? Well, after I got my score, I have another advisor, Mr. Wright, God bless his soul. And he was an advisor at one of the medical schools. And I went to him. And when I got to his office, I said, sir, I did poorly in the MCAT. He said, what's your GPA? I said, my GPA is pretty good. I have a 3.9 GPA. He said, well, that's a really good GPA. So I had an excellent GPA, but here my MCAT numbers are horrible. So he looked at me straight in the eyes and said, listen, your score is low. If you could have scored a little bit, maybe 27, I mean, we're talking about 7 years, about almost 9 years ago when this was happening, you probably have a chance. So he said, you have two options. Go back and take that exam and focus. Read like you've never read before. Put in 120% of your time. Okay, don't just be sitting around on Facebook, Twitter, and there was no Twitter back then, but basically for you guys that are studying today, don't be sitting around, texting and talking on the phone and wasting your time while you study for this exam. This is an exam that's going to change the course of your life forever. Take it as if your life depends on it. So he told me, well, you can go back and take the exam and do well and come back and reapply, or you can apply to a DO school. I said, oh, I did apply to a DO school. Granted, I didn't know anything about DOs. He said, they're doctors of osteopathic medicine. I said, oh, I'm from Nigeria. I just want to become a doctor. Are they real doctors? He said, yeah, they do everything, just exactly what an MD does. I said, oh, well, then sign me up for it. He said, I want you to go to the medical school yourself, give him a call, and check it out. So I remember walking out of his office, dejected. I was down. I said, well, I didn't have a lot of money to apply to medical school. I applied to 12 medical schools from the little money I borrowed for my student loans, and now I've got pretty much all rejection letters. So now here's a caveat before we move on to how I got to DO school. So that the school that I'm talking about that I actually applied to was really next to my house. And I said, I did a summer program there. I thought I was going to be able to get into that medical school. And I remember sitting down in front of the admissions, the dean of admissions. And I brought my MCAT score and I brought my GPA in front of him. And he looked at me straight in the eyes and said, listen, your MCAT is the biggest problem from you getting to medical school. And I'm sure a lot of you've heard that speech before. And I remember trembling in front of him. I'm a lowly, third year pre-medical student. And he said, well, you're pretty good in biological sciences. You're pretty strong in in chemistry. but you're really poor in the verbal aspect. And based on studies, I've shown that students that don't do well on the verbal often do poorly on the USMLE. And I remember those words like it was yesterday. And I said to myself, but the USMLE exam is clinically based. It has nothing to do with verbal. I can read. I can understand physical sciences. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. You say to yourself, this verbal makes no difference. And this MCAT exam clearly cannot define what it takes to become a great doctor. You're absolutely right. Let me tell you the reason why they have the MCAT exam. Well, the MCAT exam is designed as a screening test, okay? It's because there's so many students applying to medical school, and there's thousands of students, and there's only a few medical schools in the country. So whether you went to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, or you go to a community college or a private college, the only way medical schools can screen people out is to use a standardized exam. Now, granted, remember, where you study really makes a difference. If you go to a very challenging college or undergrad, they're going to prepare you a lot because they're going to force you to read, do some analytical thinking skills. You're going to learn some creative thinking skills. You're going to learn a lot of skills that might help you, may help you, not necessarily allow you to do well on the exam, but because they push you harder, it might even allow you to do well. Now, I did a lot of self-learning myself. My school was a pretty good school. My professors were very great. They taught very well. But granted, I was just weak in the verbal aspect of the exam. So clearly it has nothing to do with the college I went to. So I did a lot of self-learning. So I tell a lot of students that during your preparatory process of preparing for the MCAT, always remember that there are thousands of students applying for the same spot. And you have about a 2 to 3% chance of actually getting into one medical school. So when you do that number, that's not to discourage you. That's supposed to inspire you and say, you know what? I want to be part of that 2 to 3%. I don't want to be part of the 97%. The 97% group are the people that fail the exam and give up on their dreams and their hopes of an aspiration of becoming a physician. Well, that is not your choice. That's not an option, okay? Losing is not an option, okay? The people that quit are losers, and you're a winner. So in my mind, I said, I'm a winner. I want to become a doctor, and that's it. And nothing can stop me. I know a lot of students told me, you should think and consider nursing, pharmacy. I said, no, I came here to become a doctor, and that's why I'm here. So I remember the dean telling me how I cannot do well on the USMLE exam, and I was devastated. I was shocked. I was very upset. And he said, well, they're not going to be able to offer me admission. So I walked out of his office, and I made a promise to myself that if I ever get into medical school, I am going to do everything that it takes to do well on the USMLE exam and be the best doctor I can be. So I saw my advisor, which is at the same medical school actually, and I went outside. I remember sitting outside on the porch, picking up my phone and calling the DO school that I had applied to, and I said, hey, my name is Adeleke. I'm a pre-med student, and I would like to come visit your school. So here's a caveat. If you're applying to medical schools, I want you to go visit these medical schools. They want to see your face. They want to see that you're interested. You're not just a number on a piece of paper. You're just not an MCAT score. You're not just a GPA just lying there. You're not just somebody who's full of community service on a piece of paper. They want to see the person. So I remember driving my mom's car, and she drove me all the way down there, and we went to South Jersey. And I went to the school, and it was a beautiful campus. I walked in there, and I walked into the admissions office, and I met the admissions officer, and I said, hello, ma'am. My name is Adeleke, and I want to be a doctor. Here are my numbers. I scored a 21 in the MCAT. I have a 3.9 GPA, and here's my college. And she looked at it, and she said, we looked at your numbers. We're going to give you an interview. I could not believe it. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to give me an interview? He said, well, we'll see what we can do. I'll give you a phone call. So she gave me a call that day and said, yeah, we're considering you for an interview. Now, remember, an interview doesn't guarantee that you're going to get into medical school. But that is your golden ticket. That is your ticket in. Remember, there's thousands of applicants they're screening away. And the reason why she gave me an interview is because she said, your GPA, I remember her saying, your GPA clearly is outstanding. You're just not doing well on the verbal aspect of the MCAT. So you are a strong candidate. So we're not just going to look at your MCAT. We're not just going to look at your GPA. I've done a lot of community service. I did research. I did a lot of volunteers. And she looked at my overall application and I said, we're going to give you a chance. So I remember going back to college and I saw my pre-med advisor and I said, ma'am, I got an interview, one interview. And she looked at me and said, well, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're going to get into medical school. I don't know what you're excited about. I said, I'm excited because somebody's giving me a chance to listen to what I have to say. And you won't believe it. I said, if only one person in this world can give you a chance, and I'm talking to you right now, all you need is one opportunity to prove yourself to somebody so they can give you a chance of success. And I wasn't discouraged at all. I said, well, you might think that I'm not qualified enough because my MCAT score is not the top notch you've seen, and you might think that I don't have a chance, but I'm telling you, I'm going for that interview and I'm going to blow it out. So I started to go to work. Okay, so I called my friend. I said, listen, I need to come coach me on interview skills. I'm not great at interviews and I want to go to that interview and blow it out. And my friend came to my school, had a list of questions, probably like 20 to 30 questions. And we will sit down dressed up exactly the same way I was going to dress up on the interview day. We'll sit in a room and he'll go over these questions with me. He will ask me the questions, I will answer, and then he will give me criticism, give me constructive feedback and say, listen, you have to make proper eye contact, give a good handshake. Also, when you're talking, try not to use a lot of go straight to the point and only answer the question. And if you don't understand the question, tell them to repeat it. Okay? So he gave me a lot of tips and it made me better prepared for the interview. When I got to the interview, I had my speech made, everything prepared, and I was ready to blow the interview out. So I went to the medical school, to the DO school. And when I got to that seat, the person that was interviewing me was asking me all these questions. And I answered all the questions they asked me appropriately. And because I have prepared myself, remember the word, prepare yourself. I see a lot of students, they have interviews, they don't prepare themselves, they don't rehearse questions or even answers. And that is a big mistake, okay? When you go for that interview, be prepared to answer all the questions and also have questions for them. So I remember after I was done, I asked them all the different questions as to, do they have clubs on campus? How involved are the students in the community? What, do they have other extracurricular activities or they're just studying on campus? How strong is their class in their board scores? How did they do well on the USMLE and the complex exam? I asked all these questions because that shows you have a vested interest. And I did tons of research on the school myself. I went on their website. I tried to get in contact with some of their students so that I can answer all the questions. And I look like a rock star. So after I got an interview, I went home. And I didn't know how I did. I didn't know if they were going to call me back. But I did write a thank you letter. And I gave it to the admission committee before I left to thank them for giving me an opportunity to interview at this school. That's another caveat that you need to know when you're interviewing. Okay, that shows like you're thankful and you also remember to give back to these schools, not just you're just not a number. So about a month passed, I didn't hear anything back from the medical school, and I said, well, maybe I'm not gonna get in. I started to doubt myself, just like everybody else. But I remember coming back home. It was a Tuesday afternoon in September, and I was coming home real quick to grab my lunch and go back to tutor, and I got that phone call, and I said, "Hi, is this Ms. Adesina?" I said, "Yes. How can I help you?" She said, "Hey, hello, my name is Paula. I'm from UMDNJ School of Osteopathic Medicine." I'm like, "How can I help you?" She said, "What are you doing right now?" I said, "Well, I'm preparing my lunch because I have to go to work." She said, "I just want to let you know that you have been accepted to medical school." Oh my God. I yelled, I screamed, I ran up and down, I rolled on the floor. I could not believe what I just heard. I said, "Say that again, ma'am." She said, "Congratulations, you have been accepted to medical school." I started to cry, literally. I was ecstatic. I could not believe it. I've worked so hard for the last 3.5 years, and somebody gave me a phone call and said, I have been accepted. I was shaking. I didn't know how to take the news. I said, is this real? I'm like, are you sure? She said, yes, you've been accepted. I just want to, congratulate you, and we're going to be sending you a letter in the mail. You're going to see a package. I didn't even hear the rest of what she was saying, quite honestly, but I was overwhelmed with joy. The reason why I was overwhelmed is because I've heard a lot of no's up until that point. People have told me I couldn't do it. People have told me, you don't have a chance. I've heard so many people doubt me. And when I got that acceptance letter, it was the best thing. I remember running out of my house, and when I got to the bus station, I was actually kneeling down on the ground at the bus station, just thanking God. And I said, God, I thank you. I can't believe this. And that overwhelming feeling still sticks with me to today, because I realized all I needed was one chance. All I needed was one opportunity. So a lot of people ask, how did you end up in DO school? Well, that is how I ended up in DO school. I applied to 8 MD schools and 4 DO schools. I got rejected to 11 schools, and only one school gave me a chance. I actually retook the MCAT again. But when I took it again, I didn't actually put in a lot of work into it because I was very discouraged. I was upset. I ended up scoring like a 22 the second time around, but it was kind of too late because I already actually got accepted into one school. And that's how I ended up in a DO school, and it was the best DO school I ever went. It's called UMDNJ, but it's now called Rowan School of Osteopathic Medicine. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because I don't want you to be discouraged, okay? Now, the story actually does continue as I got into medical school, because I remember those words from that dean of admissions that told me that I'm not going to be able to do well on the USMLE exam. And it rang on to me to this day. And I said, I'm going to prove them wrong. So what I did was I got to medical school. I started to study my butt off. I was doing very well. I was getting honors and high passes in my classes, and I took the USMLE exam, and I took the COMLEX exam. So in DO schools you take COMLEX, which is Comprehensive Osteopathic Licensing Exam, and the USMLE is United States Medical Licensing Exam. So I took USMLE Step 1, and I took COMLEX Level 1. I scored very well on my USMLE Step 1, and I scored really well on my COMLEX Level 1. And I didn't stop there. I went ahead and also took USMLE Step 2, which is basically what the MD students take. And I took my COMLEX Level 2, and I took my COMLEX Level 2 PE, which is a physical exam component, and I blew it out of the waters. Now, you would think I stopped there. Well, somebody told me I couldn't do something, and I said, I'm going to be motivated more than enough to show the world, yes, I can. I went ahead and published a book with my friends, Dr. Taha, and it's called How to Prepare for the Medical Board, Secret for Success on the USMLE Step 1 and COMLEX Level 1. And this book was actually written by both of us in third year of medical school to actually teach people how to study on the USMLE exam. So not only did I do well on the USMLE, on the contrary to what I was told when I was in college that I could not pass the exam, I did more than well enough, and I wrote a book with a colleague of mine, published. It's on Amazon, it's on Audible, and we also have an audiobook version of it that hundreds and thousands of people are using across the world today. And I didn't even stop there. I went ahead and launched a company that's helping students study for the USMLE exam to study, where I make online videos that a lot of students see me on YouTube today, because I'm motivated and passionate about education and helping other people. And that was my vow after I got into medicine. I was going to help as many people get to their dreams, because so many people helped me along the way. Now, my pre-med advisor, when she heard that I got into medical school, she was very happy for me. Although she couldn't believe it, she was very happy. She helped me with my application process. She wrote me letters of recommendation. But she doubted me for a very long time. But eventually I finally broke through, and she accepted me and said, you did it. I'm proud of you. And those words meant a lot to me. And I went on to medical school to do extremely well. Now, eventually I graduated from medical school, and after taking all those board exams, taking 5 board exams before I graduate, remember, MD students will take one USMLE Step 1, Step 2, and Step 2 CS, and that's it. I had to take the COMLEX Level 1, Level 2, and PE on top of that. So that's like 5 board exams. Well, I ended up graduating and matching to an allopathic residency where I'm doing emergency medicine and about to graduate in a few months, which I'm very, very excited about. And that was my journey in a nutshell. That's how I ended up becoming a doctor. Now, why did I decide to share all these details with you? The reason is because during the course of your lifetime, when you start to make that decision from high school, from college, and saying you want to become a doctor, remember you're signing up for a big task. As soon as you say that, the people around you are going to tell you, wait a minute, do you know how long it takes to become a doctor? It takes about 11 to 17 years. That is a long time. Well, that is their time perspective. I didn't see it that way. I saw my dreams, and I know if I work hard enough, long enough, and somebody gives me a chance and an opportunity, and I don't give up, I'm going to make it. And I want you to do that same confession in the process when you start to choose that path, because it's the path of highest resistance. And most people in life go through the path of least resistance. They want to do something that's easy. Well, becoming a physician is not easy. It is hard. It is difficult. But you know what? Nobody told you it was going to be easy, okay? If you're going to have people's lives in your hands, it's not going to come easy. You're going to sacrifice hours, thousands, 10,000 hours of your time, reading nonstop, giving and sweating. But in the end, it's really sweet. The compensations are absolutely wonderful. You're going to live a great life. And I want you to remember that do not give up on your dreams. Don't ever let anybody talk you out of whatever you want to do. I don't care if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, aeronautic engineer, mechanical engineer, astrophysicist, whatever challenging career you decide to pick. Even want to be a teacher. Stick to your dreams. Stick to your plan. Okay? Surround yourself with the people that are like-minded just like you. I surround myself with a lot of great friends that help me, give me advice also as the time goes on. Ask questions, okay? And read. Read like you've never read before, because someday that knowledge is going to save somebody's life. And that's why we do this. And the gratification of standing at the bedside and laying your hands on the patient and telling them it's going to be okay, just because you have a doctor next to your name, and the fact that you can use your medical knowledge to save somebody's life is the most gratifying feeling in the world. Okay? So, word of advice for you, learn from your mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and things are not going to come easy to you. But in the end, everything is going to work out. Okay? Don't give up. Don't give in. Even if you fail the MCAT once, twice, 3 times, don't give up. But remember, don't keep making the same mistakes. If you fail twice, find out exactly what am I doing wrong and keep working hard at it. Okay? The people that they call experts in the world are called expert because they are putting thousands of hours trying to master the same subject over and over. That's why they call them experts. Okay? The MCAT is not gonna. It's a make or break test, but don't let it define you. It's just a number. Okay? Once you pass that exam, it's your gateway into medical school, and once you get in, believe me, it's a one-way street. You're gonna do it, and you're gonna do it really well. Okay? Thank you so much. So, although I got into medical school with a lower MCAT score and a higher GPA, this is not necessarily true for a lot of medical school today. I got into medical school in 2007, 2008, and I was able to matriculate in 2008. Now, personally getting to a DO school with a low MCAT score does not undermine that DO schools take a lower MCAT score compared to MD schools. But like I said, just to reiterate that they looked at my overall application, and that's why I was given an admission. Okay? And I proved myself during the interview process. And now today, DO schools are actually more competitive to get in. And every student is different. Every school always tell you there's an average MCAT score they take. And if they tell you the average MCAT score is 26, that means there are people that scored above a 26 and there are people that scored below a 26. That's what a lot of students don't pay attention to. And when everybody matriculates to your class, you don't know what people scored, and nobody tells you what they actually got on their MCAT or their GPA. You just know everybody's on the same leveling playing field. So that is why I'm sharing this story with you, because if you find out you're not getting accepted with a low MCAT score, it's because things have changed a little bit from when I took the MCAT, and also the amount of students applying to medical school has definitely skyrocketed in the last 7 years, and now medical school is more challenging and more competitive. But granted, Now, notwithstanding, I still want to encourage you not to give up on your dreams of becoming a doctor, because all you have to do is retake the exam and do very, very well in the MCAT. And also make sure you maintain a very good GPA. If your GPA is too low, you can do a post-bac or do a master's program to prove yourselves to these medical schools that you can do better. But mine could be an exception to the rule, but I know there's still a lot of students out there that's still not doing as well as most people would expect, and don't think that everybody has to get a 40 or 35 and a 3.9 GPA to get into medical school. Medical schools looks at the entire curriculum, and they look at also the ratio of males to females. It's also racially divided, believe it or not. Medical schools really believes in a lot of diversity, so they want to make sure they not just fill the entire class with just Asians or Caucasians. You make sure there's a little more diversity in the class, because when you get to the healthcare system and you're taking care of patients, you're going to take care of Puerto Rican, African Americans, Caucasians. There's so many diverse patient population, and you're able to connect more if you have more diversity within the healthcare system. And that's why medical schools are pushing very hard to make sure there's more diversified classrooms today in medicine. But remember, you cannot give up on your dreams of becoming a doctor. You can't let anybody talk you out of it. And even if you're not doing well up until what you need to do, you just got to work extra hard until you make your dreams come true. Okay, much for watching. I hope my story is able to inspire one of you guys, and don't ever give up. Thank you very much. And if you like my video and you like my story, please feel free to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to visit my website, www.ftplectures.com, to watch some fun clinical medicine videos. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you learned a lot. Are you studying for the USMLE Step 1 or Step 2? Are you studying for the NCLEX, or you're currently in nursing school as a nursing student? Are you a PA student currently in school or studying for your PANCE exam? Or are you a nurse practitioner student or trying to take your NP board exam? Listen, I've got super awesome content for you. If you truly love this video and it simplified your learning process, I want you to check out my website below. I've listed all the list of exams, whether you're studying for any of this board exam, and all I want you to do is click on the link right now below so that you can take you directly to my website. For USMLE, just go to smashusmle.com. For NCLEX, go to crushnclex.com. And if you're studying for the PANCE exam, the nurse practitioner exam, or you're studying for your internal medicine board exam, just click below and it'll take you directly to ftplectures.com. Listen, I can't wait to help you. If you need to get in touch with me, just get to my website, you'll be able to reach me directly, and we can work together one-on-one. Listen, you're super awesome, and my goal here is to help your dream come true. If you want to be a doctor, want to be a nurse practitioner, a registered nurse, or physician assistant, I'm here to help you get to that next level. With your medical knowledge, let's save the world together. I love you guys. You guys are super awesome. And do not forget to click on the link below to be able to get to my website. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You guys have a great day. Let's go.